The following program is brought to you by Element 14, the electronics community where you can connect and collaborate with top engineers from around the world. Join now at element14.com/presents.
Greetings, programs, and welcome back to Element 14 Presents. Matthew here, you there, and this is the legendary Commodore SX-64 Color Executive Portable Computer. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot to say. As you can tell, this one has seen some better days. So we're gonna open this guy up and look inside, take a peek under the hood, see what makes it tick, and see if we can get this thing running and looking a little bit nicer, like the museum piece that it should be. Let's get started.
Amazing hacks. Inspired designs. Each week, Element 14 Presents brings you innovative projects using electronics, engineering, and more.
This was Commodore's entry into the portable computer market in the early to mid 80s. This particular model was released in 1984, and it was designed to compete with like the Osborne, the Compact One, the IBM 5155, those sort of all-in-one portable, luggable computers. Now, portable is all relative. I mean, considering that a main desktop computer of the era would be at least this big, plus it would probably have external, peripherals, hard floppy drive, monitor, etc. This is actually fairly compact. Clocking in at about 30 pounds, it does have a 5-inch color CRT monitor integrated, as well as a Commodore 1541 floppy drive. And of course the other Commodore niceties like the cartridge port, the user port, serial port, and the game ports. So you can play Frogger and Congo Bongo and all that good stuff here on the SX like you would on the Breadbin 64. The one thing that it is missing is the dataset port. It was not shipped with the dataset port, does not have, it doesn't even have compatibility written into the kernel for dataset port. So that's unfortunate. So if you do have a library of games or software on cassette, you're gonna have to transfer them over to a floppy drive at some point if you want to play them on here. Okay, so first thing, we got cosmetic issues all over the place, so I'm not gonna worry about that right now. I wanna make sure it functions before I start making it look pretty. First and foremost, yeah, obviously this keyboard has seen its share of action. Oh boy, yeah, between what is ostensibly animal hair, and then I'm not sure what this stuff is, if it's foam or some kind of dirt, dust, and then of course, just regular old, 40 years of dust. That strip screw, that's not good. Oh boy, these things are stripped out. Okay, when in doubt, use a little square drive. Let's see what we got. Oh boy, don't that look pretty. All right, power on. It's doing something. Okay, screen powers up, but it is just a gray screen. Okay, so we've run into a little bit of a snag. The monitor is not monitoring, so to speak. A couple of faults that would indicate. So what I need to do is I need to better diagnose it. And to do that, the first thing I want to do is plug this thing up to an external monitor. And unfortunately, I don't have the cable for that. So I need to cobble that cable together. So I've picked up these RCA cables. Now, so what I can do is I can cut this in half, and I'll have 4 3-foot leads. So the fun thing about RCA, besides failing to keep up with technology, even though they were sort of like big deal throughout the 20th century, they were kind of a big deal. It's a lot easier to work with than like coaxial cable, you don't have to worry about doing the sheath so much. Okay, so everything looks to be soldered together correctly. I just want to check continuity before I put this thing all together. This is pin 3. That should go to here. Fancy. So this should work. Let's go ahead and hook it up to the C64 and see if we can get anything. We're getting the same gray screen. At least I know I've got video out. So back to the drawing board. I guess I've got to diagnose this a little bit more. Before I start pulling chips out and doing all kinds of terrible things and swapping chips and everything like that, I want to check and see if the cartridge port will load. So the cartridge port bypasses the internal ROM and runs the ROM off of here. So let's see if that will do anything. Let's see. Oh boy. Okay. So we know, at least with using the external monitor, that it's not just this guy's fault. It's getting the same signal out to the external monitor as it is going to the internal monitor. So we have to kind of work backwards a little bit more. So that means we're going to have to go to the main board. It's a weird orientation. The main board actually sits upright and it connects to everything through these like 40-pin connectors. And sometimes they get a little bit off, they get a little loose connection, something like that. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually pull this board out, and I'm going to reseat all the chips that I can and hit it with a little bit of contact cleaner to make sure that everything is, you know, nice and conductive. And in order to take this board out, I have to remove these little pop rivet things here. So I've got my needle nose pliers and very carefully squeeze and push. Ugh. Okay, well, there's one. I have reseated the main board chips. I have cleaned the contacts. Let's see if we get anything. Contact. Still nothing there. Still nothing. So that means I gotta start replacing chips. So, oh boy. Okay, so we got a PLA chip from another C64, and let's try it in the SX, and I'll see if she works. Here we go. Lord, please don't let me screw this up. Come on, baby. Come on. Yes! 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 It works! It works, it works, it works, it works, it works. Okay, so, apparently, this is a pretty common problem with the SX-64, is this PLA chip tends to overheat and damage and not work anymore. Oh man, yeah, all right, so biggest hurdle is out of the way. Biggest hurdle is over. We have output on the screen, which means we probably have output here on the video out as well. So yeah, we've got ourselves a functioning computer. Now I just got to get the rest of it done. Yes! 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 The last thing I got to check is good old 1541 floppy disk drive. And to check that, I have me a genuine 1541 test disk. So let's pop her in and see what it does. I was really hoping that that would just work. Of course, let's see if we can troubleshoot. The first thing I gotta do is remove the glove box here. I can imagine David Murray watching this and just saying, see, it's not so easy, is it? Now I can see what's going on. All right, so let's try cleaning it first. Clean the head and see what that does. It sounds like that motor's laboring too. All right. Yeah, it's getting stuck right there. Doesn't like to move forward. All right, let's lubricate that up a little bit. A little lithium grease. Oh yeah, that's moving a lot more nicely. Hopefully that does it. Hopefully that fixes it. Okay, so I have tried all of the simple hardware and software type troubleshooting remedies that I've been able to come up with on the SX floppy drive to no avail. So I have here another 1541 floppy drive. This is a standalone 1541 floppy drive that I got from the Getting Place. And I have taken it apart now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the old switcheroo for troubleshooting purposes. This one also doesn't work. It has a different problem than that one does. If this one starts to work in that machine, then I'll know it's the mechanism, and if that one starts to work in this machine, I'll know it's the driver board. So hopefully we'll find out something that actually does work, and yeah. Okay, so we have two nearly identical drives. Mechanically, they are identical. Electrically, they are slightly different. It's the same amount of wires. I just need to swap these connectors around. Okay, so I have this interesting convoluted setup. This is the 1541 disk drive, and I have actually kind of rigged it up with a bunch of jumpers into the SX FDD board here. So this is all wired in, that's all correct. Let's see what it does. Okay, contact. We know it does a self-test, so that's okay. And it works! Oh, yes! Okay, all right. That makes me so happy. So instead of taking a whole bunch of time and making individual wiring harnesses, we haven't had a lot of hot glue on the channel. So I'm just gonna hot glue everything together. And that will suffice, at least for right now, and then I can go back and do a little more properly later. That'll be fine. All right, cool. Let's get this thing cleaned up, and I think she's gonna be ready for showtime. So this is it. This is the newly renovated Commodore SX-64. Now, this was a very ambitious project, and I am quite glad that it turned out as well as it did. The cover was really banged up, as you saw in the beginning, and I'm actually right proud of the fact that I was able to more or less rebuild these pieces that had broken off. Now, they're not perfect. You can see the texturing in there where the primer didn't quite fill in all the way, so I may redo that in future. I was able to get some foam here and rebuild these little caps that go over the screws on the handle. I'd like to add a Pi 1541 emulator here in the glove box, mostly because who knows how long this 1541 will last. They do break down after a while, as we've seen. So check out that later on element14.com on my blog. Just search for Project SX. And big, humongous thank you, shout out to my friend John Esparza for letting me have this thing. Let me take this off of his hands. This has been a wonderful experience, and I am very, very grateful for the ability to do it. Couple of notes here on the build. I did paint it. People said, why didn't you just retrobrite it? Because it's aluminum. You can't retrobrite aluminum, to my knowledge, really. And besides the fact I was able to find a paint that was almost identical to the original finish on here. We've got a working keyboard connector. These are really hard. I'd like to 3D print the actual little shape that goes up in there. I'll do that eventually. In addition, I have a stack of these that I got to figure out some way to get onto here because this doesn't have a dataset port, so I can't read cassettes. So that's going to be, that's a sad thing because I have Frogger and I really want to play Frogger on here and I can't right now. So I've got to figure that part out. So what other types of retro computing projects would you like to see here on the channel? Let me know in the community at element14.com/presents, link in the doobly-doo. In the meantime, my name is Matthew, and until next time, tally ho, y'all.